Graeme, interesting bit of news in the national and local level newspapers. You did an interview which suggested that people had come in for Dippo, and that because you want to try hard to get promotion this year, that you didn't go for them. But can I add something to this? I've been hearing stories around the place that actually there were bids for other players as well within this period.
There was, Callum, and I think, I mean, listen, it's great to be able to come back and do another update for supporters. I did sort of suggest I would do it semi-regularly, and I think this is maybe only the third or fourth time we've caught up since I came in. But I think it is important for somebody from the club to speak after transfer windows and at least give the supporters an idea of the kind of thought process, if you like. Because every transfer window brings its own challenges, and unfortunately you never know what you're likely to be faced with. So this window was a big challenge, I guess, for myself and the board. Not only, as you say, with the Dippo situation, which I'm happy to expand as much as I can on that, but with other players, because what our aim was going into the January window was to try and keep the squad of players together that we had. Because it's important for the supporters and the players to know we believe in this group. We believe in them really strongly, and that was a big aim for us, was to come out the January window with the same player group intact. But it's also good for me now to be at a club where there is a kind of really formal, written down plan that talks really clearly about the type of club that we want to be. So in that plan is on-field performance and on-field success. In that plan is actually raising some transfer revenue by bringing in, developing and being able to sell players. In that plan has been able to try and transition some players out of the youth academy and see some benefit for all the great work that goes on there. And in that plan has actually been able to play a style of football that people would know and appreciate as being a style synonymous with what this club wants to do. And trying to do all of these things at the one time are difficult, and at times you're challenged with different things that comes towards you, and you're probably asked to make decisions about what bit of the plan is most important at any given time. So in the Dippo situation, we were given an opportunity to do one of the things that we wanted to do, which is bring in somebody, develop him here at Ayr United, and then realise a transfer value and, you know, sharing in the joy of that player going and playing at another level. But what we felt really strongly as a board, and the conversations actually weren't that in depth about it, to be honest, was that we really wanted Dippo to stay in this window. He's had a fantastic first half of the year, and he is a huge part of what we want to do at the football club, and will undoubtedly help us in the next part of the season to realise the aims that we've got. So that's what we prioritised. But you're right in saying it was the same for others. You know, we had a number of inquiries for a number of players, which is good, because that tends to only happen when your team's doing well and people recognise that you're competing at the right end of a league. What pleased me with those conversations though was the players themselves were really keen to stay. You know, they didn't want to really think about life away from Ayr United, and that they're really invested in what we're trying to do on the pitch too. So you're right, it wasn't just Dippo we were tested with, there was other conversations, and you know, I'm delighted that the players have shown the commitment to stay here and be part of what we're trying to do. I guess the challenging thing when you talk about transfers out is, you know, we're talking about real people here, and I suppose whenever I watch, you know, Sky Sports News and you see, you know, Premiership players going for millions of pounds, sometimes it's easy to forget that you're talking about people with families and lives, etc. And I think being in my role, that's one of the hardest bits, because I've absolutely no doubt in my mind that for Dippo, there was an unbelievable opportunity for him to go to, you know, probably the highest level he's been at as a first team player, certainly as a starting striker, to earn, you know, 3 or 4 times the amount of money that he's earning here, and to be closer to where his family stay most of the time. So I've no doubt that would have been a really tempting proposition, and ultimately it's myself that's standing in front of him saying we don't want that to happen just now, because we've got ambitions as a club. You're key to that, and although this looks great, I'm sorry, but we can't let that happen. And what I would say is, you know, it really comes back to how mentally strong he's been to put in the performances he did, particularly the 2 games against Cove. I'm thinking about when all of this noise is out there, I'm sure he's getting a million phone calls a day from a load of different people telling him what they think he should be doing, but he blocks that out and performs for Ayr United on the pitch. And I think it shows 2 things for me. One, how good our player group is, because clearly there was people in that changing room getting round about him and supporting him to allow him to go and perform the way he did. But secondly, how strong he is mentally to block out all that noise and still contribute significantly to 2 games which were and are really important for our season. So I've no doubt in my mind that Dippo will go on beyond Ayr United and perform at a higher level. I've no doubt, because he's shown the qualities to do it. But I think what January showed me is his qualities as a human being, and his ability and his mental strength to put a lot of things to the side and focus on performing on the pitch. So I've been in this position a few times before. It's never nice and it's never easy, but I've always looked people in the eye and told them the truth. And I have said to Dippo, I think another move for him will come, and I think he will have the opportunity to play at a higher level. And I hope that he gets the opportunity to do that from Ayr United to a higher level than what was on the table in January, because I think he deserves that.
And I know a lot of work was put in to keep Josh at the club as well, because I mean he's been showing himself on national TV with performances. You must have had people, well, I suppose Livingston must have had people asking about him, and obviously you got the deal done.
Yeah, Josh's situation was a bit unique, and because he played with Livingston earlier in the year and then played here as a loan player, you can only play with 2 teams over the course of a season. So I didn't get the sense that Livingston were likely to bring him back to play in their team, but clearly there was a bit of a benefit in them coming off of their wage bill and coming on to ours. So that did rumble on a wee bit longer than what we ideally wanted and hoped for, and I think there was a few glancing looks into the director's box when he puts the 5th goal in against Cove on a Friday night. So there was a wee bit of a challenge there maybe to make sure we did what we could to get that one over the line. So, but joking aside, we're delighted he's here. He's brought a huge amount on the pitch for us, and he's also brought a huge amount off the pitch. His experience being in this part of a league before in this division, and he drives standards every day in training. He's a really, really popular member of the changing room, so we're delighted to have him.
You've also looked carefully at players you need to develop more. You've had, for example, we've got to say Finn Eckerpont going down to Stranraer, people like that, giving them more experience.
Yeah, and I guess that this is part of the plan. So if I look at Brad Young came as a player who's a year older than Fraser Bryden. So Fraser was injured in the first part of the season. Fraser's now come back in and about the group. Brad indicated to Lee and I that maybe he wanted to go back home, and some of the challenges of being away from home, he just wanted a wee bit more, to be back closer to family, etc. So that probably for us made a lot of sense. So Brad moves out, Fraser comes into that role, and I think the squad is as strong as it was before the January window. I probably liken Mikey and Finn, so similar ages again, but Mikey had a period on loan at Peterhead which was brilliant for him to play regular football. So he comes back into the group, and Finn, I think, has seen that and seen the benefit of going out and playing regularly in the Football League. So he's taken the opportunity to do so at Stranraer. So I guess when you look at those 2 moves, if you like, they both made great sense. Mikey has had the experience of playing, comes back in to be part of our group. Fraser was injured the first part of the season, now he comes back, and I think it's important that we open up that opportunity for him to come in and be part of the first team squad as well. One of the key things we wanted to do in the January window was to keep the group together, and it is, I've mentioned it, but because we believe in the players, but also because we've genuinely got a really, really close-knit player group. And I think that's one of the challenges that you face whenever you come into a transfer window. There is sometimes an excitement about lots of players coming into an environment, and that's not always a positive thing. Because what we've got here is a really, really together group of players in the changing room, and a group that are really pushing each other every day to keep achieving good things at the football club. So the fact we didn't do a lot of business actually in our minds is a positive, because we've kept that group largely together. We were disappointed to lose Logan, there's no doubt, because he had a fantastic input in the first half of the season. But replacing him with Reece gives again another good character in the changing room. Somebody who the players have taken to really well, and who saw on the pitch an opportunity for him to come in and make a difference. So that is important for us to recognise, Cam, that we believe in the players on the pitch, but we also see really, really clearly every day what a together group of people they are, and that was important for us to try and keep that together.
Now, a lot of things are changing the club, and you said when you started off with the vision, you'd listen to fans, you'd listen to people saying things weren't quite right. You'll take the compliment straight off, but when you hear things that aren't quite right, you have in the background been working on it. Now, one I've just heard this morning is that after fan input, you've been looking at the way that season tickets are sold.
Yeah, absolutely, Callum. And I think the last sort of 14, 15 months now, really, for me, has been a huge learning curve in a lot of areas of the football business that I haven't necessarily been exposed to before. But season tickets was one of them, and it is, undoubtedly one of the biggest revenue generators a club can have is supporters buying their tickets up front at the beginning of the season. And we have been challenged a number of times to think about, can we come up with some sort of instalment or payment plan for that? So that's been an ongoing conversation for a long period of time now, and I'm delighted that next week we'll be able to announce that for next year. So I need to credit Janine Summers, our accountant, for coming up with a really clever way, I think, of making it happen. So there are some challenges with doing it, whether it's through finance companies, etc., but I think Janine's found a brilliant way to do it, and a really sort of clean and easy way for people to pay up their season tickets over probably up to a 4-month period. So we're going to announce details of that next week. And you're right, that excites me, because to get feedback from fans about things that they want to see, and for us internally to be able to find a way to make that happen, I think is great, and hopefully just shows another step forward in where we're trying to go.
Now, over the last few months, we've seen the value of the player fund, the relaunched player fund as well, and they've done something amazing. What is it, £200,000, around £200,000 that comes into the playing budget. Now, what value has that, other than the financial value? What has that done for the club?
Yeah, I think this is a really important point about the whole transfer window review, Callum, is that I made a case to the board in the summer to allow us basically to spend the entire player budget. And what there is often a tendency to do is to try and leave a little bit for January, because you might want to refresh a few things at that point in time. And both myself and Lee did make a case to say, look, we'd like to be trusted to spend all of the budget in the summer. And the player fund input into that is huge. We couldn't bring in the players that we have done. And sometimes it's the last player that you need a little bit more help to get over the line. So Josh Mullen at this moment in time, Rhys McAleer, the final players that we brought in. Logan was brought in a little bit later through the pathway as well. So players who have already made a big difference to us. And that couldn't happen, genuinely couldn't happen without the player fund and their input. So, to reach, I think they're at 190,000 just now, and their next payment is going to come out within the next few weeks, will be £200,000, an enormous amount of money for us, and genuinely really helps for us to make the squad as strong and competitive as we possibly can. So it's really appreciated, and going forward, the club's coming up with a number of initiatives that can actually help supporters to realise how important that investment and that money is.
So it's an opportunity again for fans if they want to help out in some other way. And I think we've had to do this any time we mention the player fund in any way, is that it goes directly to the players, the player pool to get them. It's not just about coming into any management area of the club, it's just for players.
Absolutely, and that's, again, a big learning for me, and a lot of support and help from Fraser McIntyre, particularly in terms of how we budget for things and how clearly we can show where they are. So that is an absolute guarantee that money goes into the player budget. So that's one of the tabs that's open on my computer more or less every day, just to make sure, how can we get as much out of that pot of money as we possibly can. And the number in terms of the kind of overall revenues of the club and the income of the club is a big number. And again, that is helped by the input from the player fund without a shadow of a doubt.
I don't want to jinx all this, but if we get into the Premiership this season, how attractive is Ayr United as a football club to bringing in new players?
So I suppose what I've seen in this January window is a bit of a shift from what the challenges we had to go through in the summer. So there's a couple of things about it. One is we're now looking at a level of player that is top end Championship, in the Premier League. So that becomes a little bit harder to try and maybe find that within the kind of budgets that we have at the minute. But I think to attract players to come, there was a lot more players that were interested in coming to us. So it almost flipped a little bit from last year, where we were interested in loads of players to try and maybe make the squad more balanced last January and to take us to a place where we could win some games and avoid relegation, to almost flip to the point where there's loads of people interested in coming, and we are having to be a lot more selective because of the reasons I mentioned about the togetherness in the group and actually understanding that our starting 11 is up there amongst the best in the league. We genuinely believe that. And that was good for me, because that was a big part of what we wanted to do, was get people to believe our story, because we are really passionate about the football club here. We really see the potential, and now I think other people are starting to see that as well. So very different phone calls from agents, very different conversations with players this window than certainly last January and possibly even the summer as well.
You mentioned there what you're trying to do with the club, but is it the improvement in facilities as well? Not just the playing staff being on that pitch, winning games, but there has been a great turnaround here. Is that part of the thing? They say, yeah, it looks like they train in a nice place. Yes, they've got lovely facilities at the ground.
100%, and it's all of that together. So even speaking to Reece, I think he's seen the team. He can watch a few of the games, but he now understands. He's asking questions about things like that. So where do you train? What facilities have you got? What's the strength and conditioning gym program like? He can walk in here now or drive in and see a car park that's been upgraded, and a lot of things about Ayr United now tell people that we are moving forward and we're progressing, and people see that. It doesn't always need us to come in with any sort of hard sell. People are seeing it, people are recognising it, and people are actually wanting to be a part of it, which for me is really exciting.
When you're looking at the club shop at the moment, we're seeing kit emptying out because, the Hummel situation, I think, has been made very clear in the press recently, and you've been asking the fans for their sort of input on what they want to see from kit, and the football strip as well in total. Where are we in that situation just now, and is it one that's causing you problems, or is it one you see coming to an end just now and that you're going to be able to announce something? Yeah,
so we obviously announced last week that the relationship with Hummel will end, so there will be a new brand partner next year, and that was a year early, I think, than what we were contractually obliged to do. So within it, there's been challenges without a shadow of a doubt, and again, something else that's come across my desk that I've never experienced before in terms of having to kind of lead that process. But with every challenge comes an opportunity as well, and we have had 14 bids in total from a whole variety of brands. Some of them came directly, some came via local suppliers as well that might have been able to work in their behalf. But what we ended up with was a lot of information to think about, what made the most sense for us. We want to have a bit of flexibility in trying to come up with something a bit unique for Ayr United, particularly along the playing kits. So having somebody that can provide that for us is really good. Things that I probably didn't consider before, so how many minimum quantities do you need to order? So for some of the bigger brands it's a lot, so it's trying to pitch that right. We don't want to have too much that we can't sell, and similarly we don't want to go for the first minimum order quantity and then not have enough to go around to people that want it. Lead-in times for delivery, etc. Some things that sound really kind of fundamental and a little bit boring, but they're really important when you're trying to find the right partner. So we are pretty close now to actually confirming that, and I hope to be in a position to announce that to fans in the not too distant future. But for me, it's been a really good process, and again, the number of brands that we're keen to work with is I took a lot of pride in, because they wanted to associate themselves with Ayr United. They were clear on why they thought that would be a benefit. They were also clear in where they thought they might be able to help and allow us to engage with more people and some really creative and innovative things that they could do in that regard as well. So I wouldn't like to go through that process every year, to be honest, because it was a lot of time and effort and work to get there, but I'm really pleased the direction it's heading, and I hope the fans will be when we can start announcing kits. So timescales, we would love to have a home strip on sale for the last home game of this season, which is really tight, but we're working really hard behind the scenes to try and get that. Hopefully an away jersey for the summer period, so when people go on their summer holidays they can get a choice of a home and away strip, and then potentially another third kit next year, which we might try and do something a bit creative with as well. So that's our timescales, and we're looking forward to getting the fans' feedback on that.
Also, over the last year in particular, you've been doing the We Are United, but you've also included that within strips. You've I think it was very, they were happy about it, the women's team, the younger teams, all getting the same strip. Now, does that increase your bulk order? Does that help you during this process?
It does, and I guess that's what we would love is, for the full women's pathway, the full boys pathway, reserves and first team to all be wearing the same strips. Part of that's a budget conversation because obviously, the boys and girls academies didn't necessarily think about having to change a brand at this point in time. But it's something we want to work through together, and I would love the next relationship we have to be a long-term commitment. If we can give what we say we're going to give and they can do the same, then I do think this is something that can help us going forward. So hopefully, in the not too distant future, we can see everybody associated with Ayr United wearing the same brand and being proud to be part of the same sponsorship agreement for sure.